What's up everyone, finally back for another modded Skyrim build featuring the Ash'abah Vagabond, a crossbow combatant specialized in fighting against evildoers like necromancers and the undead. While not just a crossbow specialist, he's also skilled in the art of alchemy and school of restoration that help him handle a variety of enemies. Though what's really unique about his skill set is the ability to weaken enemies who are usually immune to specific effects, meaning he can inflict poisons against the undead and use sun magic to damage living targets. So this build has a lot of versatility when it comes to combat. But before going over how these abilities work, let's look at the character's backstory and how he acquired these distinctive skills. The Ash'abah are a tribe of Redguards who roam around the Alik'r Desert in Hammerfell, specialized in dealing with the undead. They perform rituals of purification to cleanse those possessed by evil spirits. The Ash'abah considers the body to be sacred. If one ever becomes corrupted by necromancy, they strive to preserve the body while banishing the unholy essence. However, these ritualistic actions are considered blasphemous and unsacred in Redguard society, and henceforth, the tribe are barred from entering into the cities and why they are forced to wander the wastelands. While it is unknown how the Ash'abah developed this expertise of cleansing the undead, one can assume they are followers of Archery. Archery followers are known to be empowered to bestow his blessings, which prevent the forceful misuse of a mortal soul, most notably necromancy. With this knowledge, the Ash'abah develop ways to enhance their ritualistic methods into skills to combat evil forces. Sun magic is their primary use of fighting the undead, but with Archery's teachings, they have also utilized it to combat living beings. As for our character, along being gifted with this type of magic, he has also utilized similar methods into alchemy. Not only can he craft potions to make him more resilient, but has found ways to inflict poisons against the undead. While this made him more proficient in combat, the rest of the tribe forbade him from doing so. They viewed the use of poisons as sacrilegious and preferred to stick with their ritualistic methods. Our character refused to do so and argued that they would be saving more lives instead of sticking with the same old methods. Eventually though, he would have fallen out as the leader of the tribe expelled him. Instead of returning to any of the cities where he would find something else to make a living, he headed northeast towards Skyrim. Although he starts a new life working as a mercenary, he will eventually come across threats of necromancers and the undead to help put an end to their unrighteous ways. As mentioned in my last video, I decided to focus on Enancean's light overhauls as well as include others to create more balanced builds that are closer to a vanilla experience but still offer something unique. So Vokrii will be the perk overhaul of choice, Evenstar for the standing stones which have more simpler effects compared to Andromeda, Odin as the magic overhaul which rebalances some of the vanilla spells while also adding some new ones. While I did use Morningstar to cover the racial abilities, it's not really mandatory for this build as it doesn't add much to the build's skill set. Wintersun still remains at the religion mod since I still prefer it over the other options. Lastly, there's Apothecary, which rebalances the alchemy system by adjusting some existing options along with adding some new effects. With Wintersun serving as the religion mod, the Ash'abah will of course be worshipping Archery. As a follower, you'll be able to perform a ritual called Archery's Rites. This occurs on random NPCs you defeat, and after doing so, you will raise your favor rating. This process is what I imagine how the Ash'abah would perform to banish the unholy essence from the being in order to cleanse their soul. Other ways of increasing your favor with the divine is by slaying undead enemies and necromancers, which is exactly what this build is meant to do. Another ability when following Archery is your health will regenerate faster depending on your favor rating. With a high favor rating along with using spells and potions, enemies will have a hard time defeating you since you recover health very quickly. Not to mention the build also wears heavy armor and sort of plays like a tank. Even if your character dies, and this happens when your favor is at or above 100%, you'll be revived with full health, being able to fight again. So yeah, this build is pretty much invincible in any combat situation. With Evenstar as the standing stone mod, the Ash'abah will be using the serpent stone. The stone has the ability to reduce the poison resistance of any enemy by 50%, including those who are immune. So now poisons can be inflicted on all enemies. Also, enemies' armor are reduced by 100 points, which helps when using any of the enhanced crossbows since it's the Ash'abah's main weapon. For the racial overhaul Morningstar, Redguards have 75% more poison resistance and can sprint a lot faster while using less stamina. As mentioned before, this mod isn't really required for this build, since I only found the sprinting part useful to run towards enemies and bash them with a crossbow. While it's also useful to escape combat, by endgame it wasn't necessary since this build is meant to take hits while fighting groups of enemies, so up to you if you want to use it or another mod if you wish. For the stat distribution, I went with 3 health, 1 magicka, and 1 stamina, then stopping stamina 150. Then continuing with 3 health and 1 magicka, though you could invest more into magic if you prefer to utilize spells more often. Now for the perks, the Ash'abah's main arsenal is his crossbow, and despite being a long-range weapon, perks are more focused towards mid-range and close-quarter combat. They include point-blank shot that deal more damage to targets within 20 feet, breaching shot for knocking the shield out of the target's hands, gore that knocks the target back when hitting them during a power attack, while also dealing critical damage, and hunter's focus that prevents you from being staggered when under the attack from melee enemies. Rest of the perks are the same for the base game, like Ranger, Quick Shot, Eagle Eye, and Steady Aim. Since the crossbow relies on short-range combat, bashing it will also play a role in this build, and as it turns out, the bastion perks from the box skill tree are also applied to crossbows. So with perks like Deadly Bash and Dragon Tail, you can do more damage when bashing the target while also having a chance of knocking them to the ground. Pretty satisfying when it happens too. For the record though, bashing perks from the base game have always worked with bows and crossbows, so it's not a design oversight from Vokrii, it just works. As for the heavy armor perks, they're more focused on raising the armor rating, giving your character more movement speed, and granting extra elemental resistance, all which make you more resilient in combat and help stay in the fight longer. Before continuing with the rest of the perks, I just want to briefly cover the alchemy mod, Apothecary, as it makes some changes to potions and poisons. These changes include increasing the magnitude of potions, like fortifying health and resist magic to 300 seconds. So now there are better methods of crafting potions that are more consistent with each other, like a fortifying health and health regeneration potion. And this also does the same for magicka and stamina. This becomes even better with Vokrii thanks to the slow metabolism perk, where the effects can last up to 3 times the original amount. So not only will it save you from using potions, but they can last the entire duration when clearing out a large cave or dungeon. Apothecary also introduced some new potions that help mix with other vanilla effects. There's an increase in armor rating potion, which replaces the fortifying light and heavy armor ones that can be combined with resist magic. Both of these effects also last for 300 seconds, so another potion benefits from the slow metabolism perk. Another new one is increasing movement speed that can be combined with fortified restoration, and only needs 2 ingredients to make. Other potions I used were fortified archery and elemental resistance, which still use the same ingredients to make. Other than the slow metabolism perk, I should mention stimulants, which regenerate stamina and magicka much faster under the effect of a potion, and it also stacks when using the same types. Now for the poisons, the damage health effects have been changed to do stacking damage. So even though they're a bit weaker than vanilla, shooting a couple of poison bolts onto the target can still drain their health fairly quickly. This works in conjunction with a concentrated poison perk, where poisons applied can last up to 6 additional hits. Damage health can also be combined with a weakness to poison effect, making it stronger, or a lingering damage effect for a more continuous health drain. However, a really strong method is first inflicting the target with a weakness to poison, then switch to another weapon to use the damage health and lingering damage poison. This will make the target's health drain really quickly and is pretty much my go-to method when facing boss type enemies. Apothecary also has a new poison called Silence that prevents the target from casting spells, which will be essential when dealing with mages. Thanks to the Serpent Stone, Silence also works on the undead, and you can combine it with a lingering damage poison for a more potent effect. However, the max level is at 40, so if you're facing enemies higher than that level, you can craft a damage magicka poison, which has the same stacking effect as damage health. You can also combine it with a weakness to shock poison, along with shooting the target with shock bolts. and this poison only needs 2 ingredients to craft, which is a huge plus in my book. For the record, all the potions and poisons I've listed are benefit from the purity perk, so crafting with the ingredients shown may result in some different effects if you don't have it yet. Something to keep in mind when experimenting with the ingredients. Though once you get Experimenter, all the effects will be revealed after sampling them. Other perks worth mentioning are Alkahest and Plague Doctor, both of which not only make poison stronger, but also make the abilities from the Standing Stone more effective. Now in Restoration, the major perk to mention is Sun's Judgment. This is where sun spells like Vampire's Bane can damage other enemies, and is what I usually rely on for long range targets. This also means Stendarr's aura works within close range, and with the archery perks, enemies have very little chance against you. Another important perk is Mercy, where restoration spells are more effective to the recipient when their health is low. This not only applies to healing spells, but also to using sun spells against targets. Rest of the perks include Inner Light for more magic regeneration, and Blessed that gives a stronger and longer blessing from a Shrine of Archery, so more health. As for the spells, other than the ones previously mentioned, there's some additions from the Odin mod. Troll's Blood gives you 100% faster health regeneration for a fairly long duration, and this stacks with the health regen from Fallen Arcade as well as using a health regeneration potion. Sunstorm is a concentrated spell that sends out a wave of sparks, and with a Mercy perk, they can do more damage on a single target while their health deteriorates. Turn-ended spells are also really useful, not just with dealing multiple undead enemies, but since you can inflict them with poisons, a few bolts can drain quite a bit of their health as they flee. As for the gear, I use the Dwarven Enhanced Crossbow to deal with normal enemies and a silver one when fighting the undead. The silver crossbow comes from the legendary Bows and Crossbows mod, but is also available in the expanded crossbow pack from the Creation Club. Usually I just relied on steel bolts, but at times I would substitute them for the explosive ones, especially against groups of enemies. Like I mentioned earlier, when dealing with spellcasters, I'd use a shock bolt with a weakness to shock poison, so the same thing can be applied with the fire bolts when dealing with the undead. The armor set comes from the Armor of the Intrigue mod, and it only needs the steel smithing perk to craft. Figured it will fit this build since this character arrives in Skyrim looking for mercenary work. Strategy for this build is you always want to have your fortified potions active when going into caves and dungeons, though you may want to save up ones that are hard to make like the elemental potion. With groups of enemies, especially the undead, I usually would remain at a distance and use Vampire's Bane, but if you're dealing with mages that use wars to block your spells, then inflict them with a silence poison from your crossbow. They'll end up rushing you with a dagger but will barely do any damage. For groups of the undead, Circle of Protection is used for dealing with the melee types so that you can focus on the archers and mages. Close quarters combat is best used for one-on-one type fights, where you can rely on bashing them with a crossbow and follow up with a poison bolt. Now for the special moves, the first one is called Arcade's Guidance. This is pretty much maxing out your health regeneration to the point that any crucial damage you take, your health recovers almost immediately. Since the effects last quite long, you'll likely only need to apply this once when entering into a dungeon. The next one is called Rite of Reckoning. Once you knock the target onto the ground after bashing them, switch to dual casting the Sunstorm spell. With Stendarr's aura active, their health should deteriorate quickly, and you can always finish them with the crossbow once they get up. Last special move utilizes 2 different crossbows to maximize the lingering effect poison, and is meant to be used on higher health targets. First inflict the target with a weakness to poison, and then switch to your other crossbow and continue to shoot them with the linger and damage health poison. Keep repeating the same process and the target's health should drain rapidly. One final mention about Apothecary is that the mod also changes the restore potions. Instead of an instant effect, it works over a 10-second period, eliminating the need to stack them. So something to keep in mind if you're using spells like Vampire's Bane and Sunstorm. That pretty much covers this build, so feel free to use the comments section if you have any questions about it. And as always, there will be a gameplay video, though I've made some slight changes, so it's going to be a bit more than just pure gameplay. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.